Hi, Kaushik. Hello. Kaushik, can you hear me, Andy? Hello.
Yeah, hello.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, yeah, I
Yeah,
can hear
I'm
you.
sorry, Andy. Today I'll have to go outside, so నాకు అక్కడ ట్రాఫిక్ అయిపోయింది అనమాట. I thought of coming back by 3, unexpectedly, just very delayed. Okay, Kaushik, ఇవాళ
అంటే
like
నీకు
we'll
కొంచెం
continue only
ఎక్కువ
for
టైం,
an hour or so today, Andy. Okay.
మేబీ 40. యా, ఓకే అండి.
అంటే
అండ్
మీకు లేట్
అదే
అవుతుందా ఇంకా?
నాకు ఇప్పుడు నైట్ షిఫ్ట్ ఉంది, మళ్ళీ 10 నుంచి
Okay.
స్టార్ట్ చేయాలి. ఆల్రెడీ 9 అవుతుంది.
అవునా?
సో
అలాగైతే we'll continue tomorrow, Andy. Today's క్లాస్‌కి ఓకేనా మీకు? అంటే రేపు చేద్దామా
ఒకవేళ
పోనీ?
ఏదైనా చిన్న టాపిక్ లైక్ హాఫ్ అన్ అవర్ లో అవుతుంది అంటే చెప్పండి, ఆర్ ఎల్స్ రేపే పెట్టుకుందాం
రేపు
మరి.
మరి 3 లేకపోతే ఇంకా ఎర్లీగానే పెట్టేసుకుందామా 2:00 అట్లా? నాకెప్పుడేం ప్రాబ్లమ్ లేదు రేపు.
రేపు యాక్చువల్లీ నాకు అంటే ఇప్పుడు నైట్ షిఫ్ట్ చేస్తున్నా కాబట్టి రేపు డే ఆఫ్ ఉంటుంది. సో
ఓకే.
ఇఫ్ పాసిబుల్ మీకు 8కి వీలవుతుంది అంటే లైక్ సాటర్డే లాగా
మార్నింగా?
అట్లయినా
మార్నింగ్ ఈస్ ప్రెటీ ఫైన్ ఫర్ మీ అండి. నాకు మార్నింగ్ ఏంటంటే 10 లోపల ఎక్కడికి వెళ్ళాల్సిన అవసరం ఉండదు కాబట్టి యూజువల్లీ నాకు మార్నింగ్ 8 to 10 ఐ కెన్ టేక్. దట్ ఈస్ అ బెటర్ టైమ్ ఫర్ మీ. బట్ మీకు కుదరదన్నారు కదా అని. ఓకే. 8కి
ఓకే.
పెడదామంటే రేపు 8కి ఓకే. విల్ స్టార్ట్ అప్ 8:00. ఓకే. దెన్
యా, ఓకే.
అంటే లైక్ ఒక స్మాల్ టాపిక్ అంటే మేబీ లైక్ డిఫెక్ట్ లైఫ్ సైకిల్ అండ్ ఆల్ వాటెవర్ ఇట్ ఈస్. ఎలా అంటే లైక్ చూస్తాను ఒకసారి కోర్స్ కంటెంట్‌లో. మీకు నేను పంపించలేదు కదా మొన్నటిది కూడా. పంపిస్తాను.
ఆ,
వెబ్‌సైట్ కొంచెం నేను ఆహ్, కొంచెం అర్జెంట్ బ్యాంక్ వర్క్ ఉండే వెళ్ళాల్సొచ్చింది.
ఓకే, ఓకే. ఓకే, అవును.
I'm not sharing my I'm sharing my screen and can you see?
No. Now looks
No.
like one.
Right.
Yeah, I got it.
Right. నిన్న రికార్డింగ్ కొంచెం లేట్ అయింది. అది సెండ్ దెమ్. మీకు నేను పంపించిన వాటిలో నేను ఎక్కడి దాకా అయిందంటే కోర్స్ కంటెంట్‌లో లెట్ మీ ఓపెన్ ద కోర్స్ కంటెంట్. దెన్ ఐ విల్ నాట్ హోల్డ్ యూ బ్యాక్ అండి. టుమారో 8:00 మీకు పాసిబుల్ అయిందంటే వి కంటిన్యూ అంటిల్ ఐటీఎం
Yeah,
క్లాస్.
మళ్ళీ నేను 10 అంటే యాక్చువల్లీ అదే నేను మళ్ళీ రేపు వేరే అపాయింట్మెంట్ ఉంది.
ఓకే.
సో
ఓకే.
యా, 10
అంటే
అంటే
రేపు
10కి.
అవుతుందా మీకు అవ్వదా?
అదే 10కి అయిపోతుంది అంటే దాని తర్వాత వెళ్ళిపోవాలి ఇమీడియట్ గా. లైక్ 1 అవర్ డ్రైవ్ ఉంటుంది మళ్ళీ నాకు.
ఓకే.
సో
సో
యా, అదే 10
ఓకే.
కల్లా అయిపోవాలి అన్నట్టు
ఓకే.
పెట్టండి.
కంప్లీట్
వాళ్ళు
అయిపోవాలి అంటారా? ఓకే. ఆల్ రైట్ అండి. దెన్ ఓకే. దెన్ విల్ గో అహెడ్ విత్ మన ఎస్‌టిఎల్‌సి కంప్లీట్ అయిపోయింది కదండీ! లెట్ మీ ఓపెన్ ద
యా స్టిల్ సేమ్.
ఓకే. లెట్ మీ ఓపెన్ దిస్ వన్ ఎల్‌సి. If you have a hard stop, I will not stop you. Feel free to drop off. We'll stop and then we'll press stop. Okay. Tomorrow 2 hours, but 8 to 10 is fine. And tomorrow afternoon మీకు రేపు నైట్ అవుతదా మీకు? అంటే 8 to 10 ఒక క్లాస్ తీసుకొని టుమారో ఒక 1 అవర్ మళ్ళీ ఈవినింగ్ కూడా తీసుకోవడానికి రేపు.
ఈవినింగ్ నేను చెప్తాను.
You just ping me like today night.
యా పింగ్ యూ టుమారో. యా,
That's fine.
షూర్.
అంటే రేపు నాకు ఆల్మోస్ట్ ఇంకేం లేదు నాకు. ఓకే అండి.
ఓకే.
నాకేం ప్రాబ్లమ్ లేదు. 4:30 నేను మీకు ఒక మెటీరియల్ ఒకటి పంపించాలి. ఓకే. సో టుమారో మార్నింగ్ అండ్ దెన్ ఈవినింగ్ we can cover అండి. That will not be a problem to me.
యా,
Okay.
ఓకే.
So there is a one defect life cycle. HDLC next and then we are going to cover it. Let me open. ఓకే. ఎస్‌టిఎల్‌సి ఇస్ డన్ అండి. స్క్రమ్ ఈస్ డన్ కదా! మనకి ఇంకా. Only thing is
Yeah,
defect
yeah.
and defect life cycles.
Defect.
We need to,
Yeah, yeah.
check it out, okay. Test deliverables and the role of the tester at each phase also we discussed this, right? And like, we'll just have a quick recap. I think you have all this, like, okay. Did I send you
Yeah,
this?
yeah.
సండే నేను ఎవరైనా మీకు వచ్చిందా రాలేదా? I thought
ఏంటండి?
లేదా? ఓకే. సరే అయితే ఐ విల్ సెండ్ ఇట్ అండి. అంటే నాకు ఇంకా రికార్డింగ్ అవ్వలేదని చెప్పేసి ఉంచాను నేను. ఓకే. అట్ ఈచ్ ఆఫ్ ద ఫేజెస్ స్క్రమ్ యూ ఆర్ క్లియర్ రైట్ కౌశిక్? ఇంకేమైనా డౌట్లు ఉన్నాయా?
Yeah, స్క్రమ్ ఈజ్ ఓకే. యా.
ఓకే కదండి.
అండ్ డౌట్
So
ఉంటే
the
మళ్ళీ
major
రికార్డింగ్
topic
చూసి.
is only the scrum part, right? So you must know like what is a defect then obviously, like, what is a defect is yeah, this test reporting. This is all well self-explanatory what is white box testing and then gray box testing and all. Okay, but I will let you know like what will be done with respect to ETL testing. Now, if I'm going back to our course content, so what is a defect and a defect life cycle basically? Okay, and then we'll go with that, equivalence class partition and VBA test cases and all. This would be done, and మీకు ఎంత ఇంకొక half an hour time ఉందా until 5 o'clock our time, or you have to start now?
5:15 వరకు పర్లేదు. అంటే 40 మినిట్స్ ఉంటుంది కదా క్లాస్.
40
సో
minutes ఉంటే we'll see about the defect
Yeah.
life cycle. Any doubts so far, like we having in this STLC or Scrum or Scrum, you are clear on the Scrum methodologies and all?
ప్రస్తుతానికి ఏం లేదు. యా, స్క్రమ్ ఒక్కసారి మీరు పేరు పంపించాక మళ్ళీ చూసుకుంటాను నేను అంతే. బట్ ఇఫ్ ఐ హావ్ ఎనీ
మీరు చూడలేదు కదా, యూ డెంట్ గెట్ ఎ ఛాన్స్ టు చెక్. Okay, the only thing is Scrum, because Scrum Master responsibilities are different than project manager responsibility, and there is a product owner also. Okay, so product owner is responsible for certain things and all. ఇది నాకు ORG ఇది కాబట్టి, so that only the difference, and product owner is responsible for deriving the user stories, capturing the requirements, discussing with the business analyst, and Scrum Master majorly facilitates the meeting, acts as a liaison between product owner and the team. Okay, so she or he will ensure whether the planning is going, I mean, like, what we committed or getting delivered or not, it's going smooth or not, or if there are any impediments or issues, are we going to he or she should be responsible to resolve that at the earliest, like, facilitating the meetings or discussing with the cross-functional teams or someone. Okay, and product owner is obviously responsible for the entire product, the requirements, I mean, discussing with the client needs or capturing the requirements. I mean, basically he'll act as a business analyst. Okay, so it's a kind of bigger responsibility that he's taking care. Now coming to a defect and what is a defect life cycle. So you have idea what is a defect, right? You might have actually opened, like, a lot of times you have checked it out. So what do we mean by a defect? Any anomaly that we are actually encountered with with respect to the expected result. When we are in the testing planning phase, authoring phase, we do write the test cases, and we will, without testing the functionality, exactly without testing the application, we are going to derive the expected results. Correct? So when we are doing that, you encounter, when you are actually testing the application, when you encounter any anomaly in the actual result with respect to the expected result. Okay, so that we will call it as a defect. Obviously, your test case is getting failed and it is a defect that will be captured it as a defect, right? So what is the defect life cycle? defect life cycle is something. A defect life cycle is something like, you must be having this idea, and feel free to tell me if you're well aware of it. Otherwise, I'm just going to skip, or we'll just quickly touch base on it. Okay. Uh, so first, as and when you encounter any anomaly between the actual result and the expected result, what will you do? We think it is a defect. Okay. How do you think it is a defect? Okay, because your test case results, there could be two things. Initially, you might not have written the correct expected result, but or you might have written the expected result correctly. Then in such case, it should be caught in the your test case reviews and all that stuff only, right? Your test cases should be reviewed by the entire business analyst, and they need to be caught. So your actual result is not matching with the expected result, there is an anomaly, you're going to log the defect. So the status of the defect is what then initially it will be the new status, meaning it just, it is not a trust. You just log the defect. As a tester, you felt that there is an anomaly between the actual and the expected result when you are executing the test case. Okay, so you logged it as a defect as a new, whatever it is in the tool, whichever it is, I think might be Rally, Zira, or any ALM, any of the tools, the initial defect is a new status. This is the ideal defect status I'm just talking about in the tool. Okay. So the status of the defect would be new. If you're opening any defect in Jira, by default, it will be new, or in Rally or ALM, any of the tools, right? So
Okay.
what do you do once you log a defect? Okay, you log the defect, then what will happen? Like, I'll tell you, like, what is a defect template also. We'll just defect template. I think somewhere it is there. So when you are logging it as a defect, then it is a new status. Then obviously, what will happen? Like, the entire team is going to track the defect. Ideally, entire team in the sense as stakeholders. Your lead, I mean, like, you're going to discuss the defect in your daily stand-up calls or your defect track calls or whatever it is. If there is no, or if it is a kind of straightforward defect, you can just the developer will mark it in the open status, or dev lead or developer, whoever it is. I mean, like, they will mark the status as open, and meaning that they are going to accept the defect, right? They are going to work on it if it is correct, right? So it is in the open status. Or if there is a contradiction that they are not by raising the defect, developer is not accepting the defect, it as a defect, saying that it is the expected functionality. When you encounter such kind of scenarios, I mean, out of all your experiences, it is not necessary that every defect should be accepted by the developer, right? We will be having a lot of back and forth conversations and all that stuff, a lot of back and forth things would happen, right? So after tracing the defect, developer will reject the defect, saying that this is the expected functionality. Or typically in waterfall model, they may say that, okay, hey, this is as per the document, you have documented that as per the requirement document, we have documented the test cases long back. But in between, developer might have offline discussed with the business analyst team, and he would have gotten approval from the business analyst or someone, and he just changed the functionality and coded as is. This often this happens often, right? Like, but BA did not BA did not update the requirement document as per the change. So this will happen even in Scrum also. The backlogs, I mean, like, offline the developer will discuss, and then he can just update it all. So this is going to I mean, this is the big flaw of I mean, limitation. I would say it's a limitation of traditional model. So unless the documents are getting updated, there is no source of truth for you to confirm it as a non-defect or something. But what would happen in Scrum, even if it happens also, because of the daily stand-up calls and all, you don't have to wait until next day or tomorrow and all. You can directly discuss that, okay, during the stand-up calls or as sidebar items or something like that, whatever is the name, convention and all. You're going to discuss that, right? So developer will reject the defect, saying that this is not a valid defect, it is a functionality and all. You go back as a tester. It is not necessary that you always accept the rejection. You can go back, add in comments, and you can just, reopen the defect also with adding that appropriate comments. Developer might reject, saying that it is an existing functionality or inadequate documentation or inadequate test steps. Remember, if your environment details are not quoted in the defect, or what we call, if there are no environment details, how defect is going to be, when defect is going to be rejected. Please make sure that, you define environment details, steps to replicate, steps to replicate, screenshot of the defect, your actual result versus expected result. Right?
Yeah.
So if you are mentioning, defect title, all these things, and where you encountered exactly. Okay, we'll come back to severity and priority also. That's one more debatable thing, but these needs to be mentioned clearly. So you have to mention steps to replicate clearly. If your steps to replicate he's not able to replicate the issue, he will obviously reject, saying that, he is not able to replicate that issue. So steps to replicate is important. Your screenshot is important. Environment details is important. Title and description of the defect is important. Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
We need to fill in all these details. Okay. And there's one more scenario also. He might say that, hey, this is the document, but this is something offline communication. Also, I got it and all. So he might reject the defect. In such case, what can you do? We'll go back to that source of truth. If it is not, if it is not updated as per their offline discussion or document, then you can go ahead and reopen the defect and assign it to the business analyst or the product owner, whoever is responsible to update the defect, saying that, hey, this needs to be fixed to the document, or you can, say that this needs to be fixed and you have to update the document, then I can go ahead and close that issue. Okay. If it's
document means review document, is it?
Sorry?
What document is it? You mean you were saying document?
Requirement document.
Requirement documents. Okay. Okay. Yeah.
Or mapping document. Say this will happen often. They will ask you, kind of tricky things in the interview. They'll say that, once the defect is rejected, then what are you going to do? Obviously, you will have to go ahead and check. If it is a valid rejection saying that, okay, you did not update the steps properly, you did not attach the screenshot or something like, it's a kind of sporadic issue, intermittently it is happening, that also please call out under what situation and all. But if something like, your understanding is there is a gap in the understanding, that's fine. A valid reject, please do not go and confront with the developer. Accept the, a gap. It may not be you, but by your team also, ideally. So, accept that gap if it is an understanding gap. But if it is something like, you are verifying the source of truth, the older one, okay, and you are not being communicated about the new change, whereas developer has been communicated to the new change, or he might have discussed with the business analyst or the product owner, right? And product owner did not update the acceptance criteria or requirement document, right, in the user story. Getting my point, Andy?
Yeah.
Okay. So what would happen typically? In Scrum methodology, it is only user stories we will talk about. Okay.
Yeah.
Derived test case based on the acceptance criteria mentioned in the user story. Let's going forward, let's only just talk about the Scrum things, anyway. So you will have that involved into your mind, because anyway that traditional thing, right? So acceptance criteria is saying something based on this that you have written in your test cases, right? And you are executing. But this acceptance criteria was being discussed with the developer offline for the sake of some technical limitation or whatever it is. But it was and product owner has agreed to it, his solution. but you are getting, kind of deviation. When you're getting such kind of, especially this would encounter in cases of, error messages, length, whatever it is, right? So when you're getting this kind of deviation and all, uh, you log the defect, right? Developer said that, we already had a communication and this is the proof, some email and all, he will reset. Then you go back and check in the document, latest document or acceptance criteria, whether has it been updated or not. If it is updated, okay, attach that and we need to ensure. So that is the reason why it's a kind of hybrid or agile methodology, right? So I understand you might have written the test cases long back, but as and when there is any acceptance criteria change and all, please go through that and frequently update the test cases. I'm reiterating, we need to update the test cases. Okay, if it is taking major change, then do not accept that in the sprint. Okay, there is a scope will be variable here. Okay, you say that, okay, you are in middle of something and entire functionality is changed and tomorrow is your sprint closure, right? Tomorrow is your sprint closure and your entire test, like, 4 to 5 hours of effort, 4 to 5 days of effort was gone. You need to rewrite that entire functionality, retest it, which will take eventually like 2 to 3 days of time. Okay, if it is 3 days of time, but you are left with only 1 day, then tell them clearly, saying that, okay, I can accommodate, but this user story is going to spill over and my rewriting the test effort is also going to take. So that cannot be accommodated. Okay. So typically, people would say that, even initially I used to feel agile was so hectic and all. But when you are saying that, the scope, scope is kind of variable thing until a quarter, right? Sprints and all, like, people are flexible enough. If you give that correct justification, why the test case, user story is spilling over to the next user story, that is fine. Okay. So, but I would always recommend you to go through the latest version of the acceptance criteria or user story. Okay.
Okay.
Update the changes, update the test cases accordingly, if it is mine. So it's always good to divide the user story to the maximum possible to the lowest number of user story points. That is why they wanted to divide to the extent that it is possible to the lowest number of user story points, unless until it is something like, so many dependencies and all that stuff. It is always the bigger user story is always advised to, or the bigger functionality, to divide it into the smallest chunks. Okay.
So
one of the things, in such case, okay, if this did not happen, maybe in the next sprint also we can just do that and all. Okay, it's done. So in that case, like, you can reset, you can reopen the defect saying that, hey, this is a documentation is not updated, then go ahead and assign that to the product owner. Acceptance criteria is not updated, please go ahead and update that. Okay, or business analyst. Or sometimes, a developer will come back and say that, hey, you can close the defect or log a new documentation issue. You don't have to do that typically. I will not suggest rejected defects to be closed. You can change the defect type. Something like, initially you thought it is a code defect, you have logged it as a defect type as code issue, but it turned out to be a documentation issue. And yeah, the changed it, right? Assign it from developer, PO or BA. Okay. This is a little tricky. Reject to reopen. Okay. And reject to reopen. This is kind of, you need to have, sometimes you need to involve. And strongly you believe that this is not the expected functionality and all. Even if they will say or someone else do not agree for it, go ahead with your business, convince the business, involve the business product owner, or you should highlight it as a impediment, not even an impediment or something, highlight it in the what we call in the discussion, bring it into the bring it onto the table, scrum discussion in this daily stand-up calls, and reopen the defect, convincing them why you think that how the end users are going to be impacted and all. Okay. And the next stage could be when they are triaging new to open before going into the open, some defects could be deferred. They accepted it as a valid defect. Hey, we understand this can be fixed, but it is not because of our capacity, or this is based on the functionality, current functionality, or current scope and all. We cannot fix it now. So we are going to defer that defect, right?
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
defect can be deferred, but whenever we are, I mean, they will ask you to defer the defect, or the lead is going to defer. But whenever we are marking the status as deferred, mention that, ensure that I add in the comments like why are deferring and which sprint we are going to fix it also. Okay.
Okay. Okay.
Need to
So it
mention
differs from
sprint
one
also.
sprint to other sprint, is it?
Yes.
It can differ from one in the other sprint they
Multiple
will.
environments, yes, this is a valid defect, but we cannot fix it now. We can, I mean, because of low priority or because of capacity. But this also should be agreed upon by the business. A product owner or business analyst has to take a call. Okay.
Okay.
Along with the dev team. Dev lead say that, okay, we cannot take it now, because for everything they might say that if you are getting some creepy developers, then they will say that, okay, for everything they do not have time now. Then involve the business and prioritize that. When you, I mean, the business has the authority to reduce the priority also, because it's obviously business call when do they wanted to release the functionality and all. So it's responsibility of the product owner. Check with the product owner, and then mark the status as. And this is open to reject or open to defer. Okay, I mean, while tracing the defects and all. And sometimes, sorry, new to reject, new to deferred status after tracing this process. So sometimes they will directly reject, or they will defer the defect, or they are going to duplicate it as an issue. This is, I wanted it to be minimized as much as possible. Okay. They might find that it is
Okay.
a issue. Then it is turned out to be a tester's inadequate knowledge. Remember, why are we maintaining all these statuses? End of the day, we'll do an RCA, root cause analysis, for each and every defect. How many you obtained, how many defects are there based on the understanding of the testers, gap in the understanding of the tester. A reject defect is a bad defect, right? Bad defect on the tester only. Okay. Reject reopened is fine, but directly reject is a bad defect, and deferred defect is fine, but duplicate issue, then they will ask, I mean, some people will get irritated. Why do you? Because obviously developers will go with the number of the defects, and the product owner and all will say, hey, the quality of the, there were instances that they directly made a comment saying that, okay, taking the name of the prestigious vendor itself, saying that, okay, the client would say, hey, this dev team is not so strong enough. They have logged these many defects, so we are not gaining any confidence in their product. Okay. So whenever we are looking at the defect, ensure that, the issue is not duplicate. How do you ensure that the issue is not duplicate? By looking into the defect.
By looking into the older defects.
Correct. Defect history. Okay.
Defect
So
history.
whenever you find it, please, I would recommend to go and refer to the defect history.
Yeah.
Told me, defect history and scope are the two key parts in testing part. Okay. So that I agree in the beginning of this. This is defect history is most important. Okay. So even if there is an existing defect, how do you avoid duplicate issues? Okay. Duplicate issue. There is an existing defect which was closed, which was fixed, closed, verified, and closed at that time. But again, you encountered the same thing. Okay. So maybe they might have forgot to check in some code or something like that. So even in such scenarios also, you can just go ahead and reactivate the original defect by adding the comments.
Okay.
Okay. adding the comments, we can just go ahead and reopen the defect. That is the preferred way. Okay. And you check it with the project, reopen the defect. But what we need to do, basically, we need to do some investigation rather than, developers are coming back and all saying that, hey, I looked into this and there is no a duplicate. There is an existing issue, but it is verified and closed. So you want me to reopen that, or you want me to log a new issue? That is why the Scrum calls would help. Daily stand up.
Yeah,
This kind of
okay,
things
okay.
and all. Right?
Oh,
Okay.
yeah, okay.
Okay, then duplicates try to minimize as, and sometimes, yeah, at times like we cannot avoid duplicate because functionality wise it might differ, but coding wise, like the code fix would be same. The code fix
Okay.
would be same. Okay. So that's fine,
Okay.
duplicate, but try to minimize and add a comments on all these things appropriately, add a comments. Okay. Whenever you're logging a duplicate issue, just ensure that, you refer to the defect history and there were no existing defects like this. Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. All right. And then, and obviously, I think these you must be knowing, like open meaning like, developer has accepted the
Yeah.
defects and they're going to, once they fix the defect in the dev environment, they were able to replicate and they were able to find the issue. So once the debug and fix the issue in the dev environment, they will mark this developer will mark the status as fixed by giving that, deployment,
Okay.
development code, build code and all that stuff. So once the issue is fixed and deployed in the queue environment, then only the status of the defect should be marked as ready for test, RFT.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
So you cannot really take up the fixed issues. Developer will say that, hey, we fixed these issues, so we can just, we are done from our end. But you need to bring them or they into the call or something, or they deployed into queue environment. If they are deployed into queue environment, are they ready for test? Please change the status as ready for test. And in some of the projects like kind of support projects, support functionalities, they don't care, like, if it is ready for test and all, they will ask you to verify it in the dev environment itself with the fixed status only. Okay. But if you're following any ALM, Jira and all, please mark it as a status as ready for test. Okay. Or you yourself can discuss with, after discussing with the developer, you can change
So
ready for test.
it may come in next sprint as well, or they have to fix it in the same sprint and do
Yeah,
it.
good question. Like, it might be in the same sprint only based on the bandwidth. Okay. So when you are
Based on the
testing the
bandwidth,
log
you
at the
can
defect
fix
in the
it.
sprint one, day 2 of the sprint to 1 or something like that, right? You are testing it.
Okay.
Sprint 2. Sprint 1, they have developed. Sprint 2, they gave it for execution. You started, they gave it for testing. You started testing sprint 2, then they have to fix it, right? In the sprint 2 itself. Okay. Developer will sprint. It all depends, like, so it is not like a release, right? Deployment to deployment, they will deploy it. Nowadays, I think there is a CI/CD tools are coming, like, GitLab and all, if you are, I think, aware of it, like, continuous integration and continuous deployment. So,
I know.
yeah, you're aware, right? Then that's good. So they will be immediately deploying that fix. They can mark it as a ready for test. Okay. But again, here is the catch. If you are thinking that this defect retesting will not take time, however, there is an impact of this defect for your existing test cases or the functionality that regression will be more or something. And if you feel that, your current sprint will not be sufficient and all, please raise it as a flag in the Scrum call. Okay, saying that it will spill over to this because of this defect fix came. Like, tomorrow will be your sprint closure and they fixed it and deployed it in today. And you planned, retesting will not take time, but you almost completed 80% of the testing. Okay, and this defect fix is going to impact other functionalities also, where you think that, the regression is needed. I would recommend you to raise it as a concern throughout your regular call until unless they fix it. Even despite that, if they are giving that at the end of this one, so please act as a concern and
Mhm.
not as an impediment or blocker, but say that in the bring it into bring it onto the table and saying that, okay, because of this, the user story, the part of the user story is going to be spillover. Okay. Even I think there is no part of the user story, or the story will be spillover to the next sprint. Okay. And add the comments appropriately. So it will not be on your head. Some masters will try
Yeah.
to reduce as many user stories as possible, not to spill over. But these are the incidents or instances that they cannot avoid. So even if you are doing also, we need to have a proper justification. So you will be having a saying
Okay.
that, saying that, okay, I have been rising it. This defect fix, it's not only retest, this will impact my other functionalities also, that I will need this much of time to retest them. But because, it got deployed, I do not have that much time. Then, it is going to, if it is a kind of release, no, you have to do it. You have to do it today only. Okay. They cannot
Mm.
negotiate on the time. Okay. Basically, your scope is fixed.
Mm.
You need to retest all this 80% of the functionality based on this. Your scope is fixed. You may say that otherwise I'll not be retested. I'll just retest and regression is not needed. Then it's based on the defect priority. It is a call of the developer and product owner and you. It should be an agreement among us three of you. And then you can just retest.
Mhm.
But if the scope is fixed, no, there will be functionalities that are getting impacted. So we wanted it to be retested. Then you will go with the
Okay.
negotiation of the time. Then this will not
Okay.
happen in this particular because I need at least 2 days of time and tomorrow is the sprint closure. Then it will not happen by tomorrow, right?
Okay. 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 Yeah. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
as a test lead, you will say that it will not happen. So if possible, I'm going to do it. So this will spill over to the next sprint and I'm going to execute that in the next sprint. Okay, but in
Okay.
such case, tomorrow is also a hard cutoff that it needs to be completed. There is a release date. It needs to go into the production deployment by tomorrow.
Mhm.
What would you ask? Remember, your scope is fixed, your time is fixed, right?
Mhm.
What is the other attribute you can think of? You will ask for the resource.
Mhm.
Okay, I cannot do it immediately. 2 days I
Okay.
need for one single post. Okay, give me a person who XYZ who has already having the knowledge on this, or a developer or whoever it is, and ask them to work along with you on the test case execution. Okay, so this
Okay. Yeah.
how,
Yeah. Okay.
I mean, like, yeah, typically the strategy we can be planned. Right? After ready
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
test, okay, you retested the defect, and if it is working fine as expected, you're going to close the defect. If not, again, same thing. You will reopen the defect, assign it to the dev, and dev will actually fix that issue, and again mark it as a ready for test. How many ever
Yeah.
number of
Okay.
reopens are there? They will have an impact for that, and even on the open defects also
Okay.
during
Okay.
the
Okay. Okay.
RCA. How many number
Okay.
of
Okay.
duplicates are there, or how many number of rejects are there? It is going to impact the developers, sorry, testers' ability. It will
Test
raise
case.
question of the
Okay.
testers' ability,
Okay. 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 Okay.
right?
Mhm.
So these are all important to calculate the final end of the product, the metrics and all, uh, RCAs and all that stuff. I mean, if you are involved into kind of leadership activities or something, these metrics are the important
Mhm.
stuff. Okay,
Okay. Okay.
this is our defect
Yeah.
life cycle. I think all right, Eddie, you have time. I think I'll have to schedule also anyway. One more thing.
Mm.
Mhm. Defect life cycle was that. Test deliverables and role of tester, I think we already discussed, right? What are the test deliverables at each?
Yeah.
Yeah, whatever it is, like
Yeah.
test cases. I'm going to share you that document also yesterday and all. Uh, Plan scenarios, test plan and test scenarios. When we are revisiting, we will just how to identify the scenarios. I think we have identified it, but we'll just do one more exercise also. I will see. Maybe we can discuss
Okay.
like you have 5 more minutes of time, or severity and priority we can discuss.
Yeah. Sure. Yeah.
Yeah, we'll discuss severity and priority and test cases Jira template. I'll be sharing these test cases. Tomorrow we'll be testing this, a test plan and test scenarios. I think test plan also I do have. Test scenarios also.
Okay.
Oh.